My son said, "Mom, my business partner does not like you, and you are not welcome here." And in that moment, the world around me slowed until every sound felt distant, like an echo from another lifetime. And I stood there, holding the weight of his words, as if they were stones sinking into the deepest part of my chest. And I wondered how a single sentence could unravel so many years of love, sacrifice, and silent prayers whispered into the night when he was too young to understand how much a mother carries. I looked at him, standing there, tall, stronger than the child I once held, but somehow more fragile too. And I could see in his eyes a storm he was trying to hide. A storm made of loyalty, fear, confusion, and the desire to belong to something bigger than himself. And he spoke with a steady voice, but I could feel the trembling beneath it, like the faint shiver of a leaf trying to hold on in harsh wind. And I realized he was not trying to hurt me. He was only trying to survive in a world that demands choices he was too young to make. I wanted to reach out, touch his cheek, hold his hands, the same hands that once clung to mine as if I was the only anchor he had in a world too big for his small steps. But now, he kept those hands tucked away, as if showing them would reveal too much vulnerability. And maybe he was afraid that if he reached for me, he would break the mask he had carefully built to prove he belonged in that place where someone had convinced him that I did not fit. I felt the cold in the room, not from the air, but from the sudden distance between us. A distance wider than continents and deeper than oceans. And I asked myself, when did this divide begin? Was it the day he started dreaming his own dreams? The day he met people who shaped his world differently? Or the day I forgot to tell him that no matter how far he goes, my love would follow, without asking for permission or a place at any table? I watched his breath rise and fall, watched the tension in his shoulders, the way he stood like someone preparing for battle. And I knew he expected anger, disappointment, or tears. But all I felt was a quiet ache that wrapped itself around my heart like a soft yet unbreakable thread. Because how could I be angry at a child who was taught to feel ashamed of the one who gave him life? How could I blame him when the world sometimes teaches us to replace love with acceptance from those who hold power over our dreams? I wanted to tell him that a mother is not a guest in her child's story. She is the soil from which the story begins. But I knew the words would sound too heavy for the fragile moment that hung between us. So instead, I simply breathed and let the silence speak the truths I could not form. Because silence sometimes carries more honesty than any spoken line. I remembered the nights when he was small and afraid, and I sat beside him, gently stroking his hair, whispering that he was safe, that he was loved, that nothing in the world could make me give up on him. And now, as I stood before him, hearing that I was not welcome in a place where his future lived, I wondered if he remembered those nights, or if life had pulled him too far from the memory of my comfort. In that moment, I saw not my son who was distancing me, but a child who was still searching for himself in the shadows of expectations, demands, and the influence of people who did not know the shape of his soul the way I did. And I felt a sudden tenderness toward him, a tenderness stronger than the pain, because I knew he was caught between worlds, the world he came from and the world he was trying to build. I stepped closer, not to confront, but to understand. And he looked away, as if my closeness made him feel small again, as if he feared that my love would unravel the identity he was trying so hard to hold together. And I whispered in my heart, not aloud, because the time for loud words had passed. I whispered that he did not have to choose, that he did not have to push me away to prove his loyalty to someone else, that love does not demand exile. I felt a wave of memories washing over me. Memories of his first steps, his first day of school, his laughter echoing through the house, the mornings when he would run to me with pure joy, untouched by the fear of judgment. And I wondered how a bond so deep could feel so fragile now. And yet I knew it was not breaking. It was transforming into something neither of us understood yet. I breathed in slowly, letting the ache settle into my bones, not as a wound, but as a reminder that love is not always welcomed, accepted, or understood in the places where our children try to make their mark. And I realized that this moment was not about me being unwelcome, but about him trying to navigate a world that values strength over truth and independence over roots. And I silently prayed he would one day understand that true strength comes from knowing where you belong. He finally raised his eyes to mine, and for a heartbeat, I saw the child he used to be, the one who trusted me without question, the one who believed I was his safe place. And I wanted to gather that child in my arms and tell him he did not have to hide behind the coldness in his voice. But the child vanished as quickly as he appeared, replaced again by the man he was trying to be, and I knew he would not let himself soften. So I stood still and let my heart speak through the quiet space between us, letting him feel the unwavering love that had held him since before he opened his eyes in this world. And I knew that even if I was not welcome in that room, in that business, in that moment, I would always be welcome in the story written inside his soul, because a mother lives there, even when she is pushed away. I wanted to tell him that people may come and go, partners may change, lives may shift, but a mother remains a constant truth woven into the fabric of who he is. But I held the words inside, because sometimes love means stepping back, allowing the child to walk his own path, even if the path leads through places where a mother cannot follow. I looked at him one last time, and I felt something unexpected. Not rejection, not betrayal, but a deep compassion for the boy inside the man. The boy who was still learning that he did not need to prove anything to be worthy of love. And I hope that one day, when life softens him, when experience humbles him, when the world shows him what truly matters, he will remember this day not as the day he pushed me away, but as the day he learned what love looks like when it chooses silence over pride. And I turned away, not out of anger, but out of acceptance. Not because he told me I was not welcome, but because I knew forcing myself into his world would only make him feel smaller. And I wanted him to grow tall, strong, and unafraid of losing love. And as I walked away, I carried a quiet promise within me that whenever he turns back, even if it takes years, I will be standing where he left me, heart open, arms open, a home he can return to without fear, without shame, without hesitation. For love does not demand a place. It creates one in the hearts of those who need it. And I knew that no matter where he walked, No matter who tried to erase me from his path, the bond between us would drift like a silent river beneath all the noise, waiting for the day he would hear its gentle call again and remember that a mother is never truly unwelcome in the life she brought into this world. As I stepped away from him, the air around me felt heavy, like the sky itself was holding its breath, and every step I took echoed with the memory of his words, "Not welcome here." And yet, beneath those words, I sensed a quiet plea, a silent cry that he himself did not understand, a longing to belong to a world that made him feel important, and a fear that if he stood too close to me, he might lose the fragile place he had carved out for himself. I walked slowly, letting the weight settle in my heart, letting the truth unfold without resistance. And somewhere within that quiet heaviness, I began to see the shape of his struggle clearer than before. A child trying to become a man in a world that rewards distance over tenderness and confidence over vulnerability. A world that convinces young hearts that love is weakness and roots are a burden. And I felt a deep ache because I knew the world was teaching him lessons I never wanted him to learn. As the memories of the day drifted through my thoughts, I felt my own footsteps take me back in time to the days when he would run toward me, not away, when he would lift his arms with trust so pure that the universe itself seemed to pause in awe. And I remembered the warmth of his small body pressed against mine, the way he would cling to me when storms frightened him, the way his laughter filled every empty space of our home like sunlight touching old walls. And in that moment, I wished I could return to those days, just for a breath, just to remind myself that love had existed without conditions, without borders, without fear. But children do not stay children, and mothers do not stay at the center of their world, and life moves them into new spaces where love is tested, reshaped, and sometimes forgotten. And as I replayed his words in my mind, I could feel the years between us stretching like a long road, and I wondered how many crossroads we had passed without realizing that our paths had begun to drift apart. I reached home, and the silence embraced me like an old, familiar companion, the kind that does not speak but understands. And I stood in the doorway for a moment, feeling the weight of absence. The absence of his laughter, the absence of his presence, the absence of the closeness that once lived between us. And I let the silence wrap around me, because sometimes silence is the only place where a mother can set down her pain without breaking. I sat down slowly, letting the memories settle around me like dust in sunlight, and I closed my eyes, letting my heart speak in the quiet honesty it had held back earlier. I whispered inside myself that love is not measured by welcome signs or closed doors. Love remains, even when it is uninvited, even when it is misunderstood, even when it is pushed to the edges. And I felt a softness bloom within me, a softness that reminded me that motherhood is not a place you enter, it is a place you carry within you. As the hours passed, I found myself thinking of him again. His face, the way his voice tightened when he said those words, the way his eyes avoided mine as if afraid to let the truth slip through. And I realized that his sentence was not a rejection. It was a mirror reflecting his own fear, his own insecurity, his own search for acceptance in a world that demanded he prove himself worthy by stepping away from me and my heart. I knew this was not him pushing me out. This was him trying to hold himself together. I wished I could hold him again, even if just in memory. Hold him like I did on the nights when he cried because the world felt too big. Hold him like I did when he fell and scraped his knees, and I told him pain does not last forever. Hold him like I did when he whispered his dreams to me, believing that I would always be the one to protect them. And I wished I could whisper to him now, Tell him that he did not need to choose between love and ambition, that he did not need to silence his heart to gain approval from those who could never love him the way I did. But life does not give mothers the power to step into their grown child's mind and rewrite the fears that others plant there. So instead, I let my heart speak quietly into the night, promising him comfort even from afar, promising him presence even without invitation, promising him forgiveness even without apology. And I realized that this is what mothers do. They love without permission and without conditions and without fear of seeming fragile. The night deepened, and with it came the familiar hum of loneliness, the kind that touches old wounds gently, reminding them they still exist. And I let myself feel it without resisting, because pain unacknowledged becomes a ghost that haunts the heart, but pain accepted becomes a doorway through which healing can finally enter. And I breathed deeply, letting the ache soften just a little, letting my heart expand to make room for understanding. Somewhere in that quiet night, I imagined him sitting alone too, wrestling with thoughts he could not speak, wrestling with guilt he did not know how to name, wrestling with the conflict between the love he felt from me and the pressure he felt from those around him. And my heart ached because I knew this was not him pushing me out. This was him trying to hold himself together. I wished I could hold him again, even if just in memory. Hold him like I did on the nights when he cried because the world felt too big. Hold him like I did when he fell and scraped his knees and I told him pain does not last forever. Hold him like I did when he whispered his dreams to me, believing that I would always be the one to protect them. And I wished I could whisper to him now. Tell him that he did not need to choose between love and ambition, that he did not need to silence his heart to gain approval from those who could never love him the way I did. But life does not give mothers the power to step into their grown child's mind and rewrite the fears that others plant there. So instead, I let my heart speak quietly into the night, promising him comfort even from afar, promising him presence even without invitation, promising him forgiveness even without apology. And I realized that this is what mothers do. They love without permission and without conditions and without fear of seeming fragile. The night deepened, and with it came the familiar hum of loneliness, the kind that touches old wounds gently, reminding them they still exist. And I let myself feel it without resisting, because pain unacknowledged becomes a ghost that haunts the heart, but pain accepted becomes a doorway through which healing can finally enter. And I breathed deeply, letting the ache soften just a little, letting my heart expand to make room for understanding. Somewhere in that quiet night, I imagined him sitting alone too, wrestling with thoughts he could not speak, wrestling with guilt he did not know how to name, wrestling with the conflict between the love he felt from me and the pressure he felt from those around him. And my heart ached because I knew this was not him pushing me out, this was him trying to hold himself together. I wished I could hold him again, even if just in memory. Hold him like I did on the nights when he cried, because the world felt too big. Hold him like I did when he fell and scraped his knees, and I told him pain does not last forever. Hold him like I did when he whispered his dreams to me, believing that I would always be the one to protect them. And I wished I could whisper to him now. Tell him that he did not need to choose between love and ambition, that he did not need to silence his heart to gain approval from those who could never love him the way I did. But life does not give mothers the power to step into their grown child's mind and rewrite the fears that others plant there. So instead, I let my heart speak quietly into the night, promising him comfort even from afar, promising him presence even without invitation, promising him forgiveness even without apology. And I realized that this is what mothers do.
They love without permission and without conditions and without fear of seeming fragile. The night deepened, and with it came the familiar hum of loneliness, the kind that touches old wounds gently, reminding them they still exist. And I let myself feel it without resisting, because pain unacknowledged becomes a ghost that haunts the heart, but pain accepted becomes a doorway through which healing can finally enter. And I breathed deeply, letting the ache soften just a little, letting my heart expand to make room for understanding. Somewhere in that quiet night, I imagined him sitting alone too, wrestling with thoughts he could not speak, wrestling with guilt he did not know how to name, wrestling with the conflict between the love he felt from me and the pressure he felt from those around him. And my heart ached because I knew this was not him pushing me out, this was him trying to hold himself together. I wished I could hold him again, even if just in memory. Hold him like I did on the nights when he cried because the world felt too big. Hold him like I did when he fell and scraped his knees, and I told him pain does not last forever. Hold him like I did when he whispered his dreams to me, believing that I would.
As the first light of morning began to touch the edges of the sky, I felt a soft calm settle around me, like the world itself was reminding me that even the longest night ends. Even the deepest silence eventually breathes again. And I stood by the window, watching the slow birth of a new day, each moment unfolding with a quiet promise that healing is not loud, it is patient. And I let that patience wrap itself around the tender parts of my heart. I thought again of my son, of the way his voice had carried those difficult words, the way his shoulders tightened as if bracing for a storm, and I understood something new, something gentle, something necessary, that sometimes a child must step away from the one who raised them, not because love has faded, but because they are still learning how to stand on their own unsteady feet. And sometimes in that learning, they push away the very hand that once held them steady. And I felt the heaviness within me loosen just a little as I accepted this truth. I walked through the quiet rooms of my home, each corner holding echoes of his presence, tiny reminders of a time when life felt simpler, kinder, softer. And as I touched the walls, I could almost feel the warmth of his childhood, the memories drifting like dust caught in morning light. And for a moment, I allowed myself to hold those memories close, letting them soothe the ache that had lived in my chest since he spoke those words yesterday. But then, slowly, gently, I let the memories fall back into the quiet, because I understood that living in the past would only keep me from seeing the path ahead. And I whispered to myself that love does not survive by clinging. It survives by flowing. It survives by trusting that distance is not destruction and silence is not abandonment. It survives by believing that bonds built with truth do not break. They bend, they stretch, they wait. I stepped outside, letting the cool morning air kiss my skin, and I felt the earth beneath my feet steady and real, reminding me that life continues even when hearts hurt. And I breathed deeply, feeling the world expand around me, reminding me that I am more than a moment of rejection, more than a sentence of unwelcome, more than the pain of being misunderstood. And as I breathed, the sorrow inside me softened into something quieter, something more peaceful. The day moved slowly and I moved with it, not rushing, not resisting, simply allowing each moment to unfold, letting every breath guide me toward acceptance. And somewhere in the stillness, I realized that the love I carry for him does not need approval from anyone. It does not need space in a room. It does not need permission from a business partner. Love simply is. It exists without condition.
and that truth settled in me like a warm light carving away the darkness that had lingered in the corners of my heart. Later, as the sun dipped low, casting long golden shadows across the ground, I felt a gentle shift in the air, a soft knowing that endings are not always sharp. Sometimes they arrive like a slow, quiet sunset, easing you from one chapter into another. And I sat beneath the fading sky, letting that truth sink into me, letting it wash over the places where pain had once held tight. I thought of my son again. Imagined him carrying the weight of yesterday too, perhaps feeling the sting of his own words, perhaps realizing that he had spoken from fear, not truth. And I hoped that in time, his heart would guide him back, not because I demanded it, but because love always finds its way home. And I whispered into the evening wind that he was forgiven long before he even knew he needed forgiveness. As the sky darkened, I felt a gentle peace settle within me, a peace that came not from forgetting, but from understanding, a peace that came from knowing that love endures, even in silence, even in distance, even in the spaces where we cannot follow our children, a peace that reminded me that motherhood is not undone by one painful moment. It is shaped by years of unwavering devotion, and nothing can erase that. And so, as the stars began to appear one by one like tiny lanterns in the vast night, I allowed myself to release the heaviness, release the ache, release the need to be welcomed in every part of his life. And instead, I held on to the quiet truth that I will always be part of him, whether he sees it now or later, whether he acknowledges it or keeps it hidden beneath layers of pride and confusion. I will always be in the fabric of who he is. I stood quietly, letting the night surround me, and I felt a soft strength rising within me, a strength born from love, a strength born from surrender, a strength that whispered that endings are not failures. They are an invitation to grow, to breathe, to trust, to hope. And in that moment, I understood that this chapter was closing not in bitterness, but in a quiet, gentle acceptance. I closed my eyes and let the final whisper of the day settle into my heart. My son, you may walk far. You may stand with people who do not know me. You may speak words that distance us, but my love will always remain a steady light waiting for you when you are ready to return. And whether that day comes soon or in the distant horizon, I will be here with a heart that has not dimmed, with a love that has not wavered, with a soul that has learned how to endure. And with that final breath of understanding, the story settled into its ending, not with noise, not with confrontation, but with a soft, unwavering truth that love remains even when doors close, even when words wound, even when distance grows. Love remains steady, waiting quietly like a light in the window, guiding the lost safely home. This is the end of the script. If you want, I can extend it further, add an intro or outro, or tailor it for a full 60-minute voiceover.
If you enjoyed this story, make sure to hit that subscribe button. Every single subscription motivates me to bring you even more exciting and dramatic HOA stories. And don't forget to tap the bell icon so you never miss a new upload. I'll see you in the next story, where justice gets even more satisfying.